Good morning, boys and girls. Today we are going to talk about how to make a really cool looking haunted house type scene for Halloween. So I've opened up a new drawing in Google Drawings, and the first thing I'm actually going to do is make sure I name it. So we're going to call it Haunted House Silhouette. And when I say a silhouette, I mean something that is almost completely one color. So the majority of all this picture is going to have a lot of black. And remember, you must always put your name at the top, okay? So in order to start this off, we want this whole background to be black. So you're going to basically right click. For my computer, it's Control. I think for you, it's Alt on a Chromebook. And we want to change the background. And we're going to change the background to black, just like that. Now, what we need to do is we need to have some sort of center part that will help us with doing our silhouette. So we want like a bright area in the middle here. And I'm actually going to use a circle shape. So I'm going to go to Shape, and I'm going to go to the oval shape right here. Because remember, we don't technically have a circle shape. We have an oval shape. So I'm going to click this. Here's my circle, and I want to stretch it out so it almost fills up the whole canvas. Almost. You still want some areas around that are black. So you see I'm stretching that out. And a fair amount of this is actually going to end up getting covered up, but we still want to make sure that we have this stretched out. So notice I still have like a border around the edge. Now, we're going to make a custom gradient to go with this. If we remember, to get a gradient, we go up to the fill color, and we go from solid to gradient. Now, if you don't want to do a custom gradient, what I would suggest is using the dark yellow 2 radial gradient, and you're going to get something that looks like this. And this is actually fine. But if you want to do a custom gradient, you're going to go up to fill color. You're going to make sure you're on gradient. You're going to go down to custom. Now here, just like we've done before with doing custom colors, this tells us exactly what our gradient is going to look like. So this is the lightest, which for this is in the center, and this is the darkest, which is on the outside. We're going to make one that has 3 colors. So I'm going to first change this color. So I make sure I'm clicked on this, and you know you're clicked on this by having the blue around it. So I'm clicked on this square, and I know that because the blue is around this. And I'm going to go to right here, and this lets me change my color. I want this to be a bright yellow, just like that. Now I'm going to change this little square to red. So once again, I click up here, and I'm going to go to this bright red. Now, if you notice, this kind of makes it really kind of cool looking. So I want a tone that's in between these. And what I do is, where it says gradient stops, I'm going to hit add. Gradient stops tell me when this is about to change colors. So think of it like stops on a train or stops at a bus stop. How many different times do you stop? So this, let's call this one stop right here. And I'm going to change this to an orange. And that's actually really all I want. And because I like how that looks, I'm actually going to keep that as it is, and I'm going to hit OK. And there's my custom gradient right there. It looks actually pretty darn cool. I can leave the border alone, or I can make it transparent. It's up to you. It doesn't really do much even if I take it out. So right now, this is our background. This is kind of like a bit more of our canvas. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a hill down here at the bottom. So I'm going to go back to shapes. I'm going to find a shape that kind of works for a hill. And something like that actually might be this one, the round same-sided corner rectangle. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to bring that down. And I'm going to drag it out so it kind of almost goes like to the edges here. And I want to make sure I fill that to black. maybe I actually want to even drag it out even more, or maybe I kind of want to make it a little bit more round. So this you can kind of play with a little bit. The idea is to try and make it almost look like it's a hill. So this might not be too good for a hill if you don't like how this looks, and I'm not really liking how this looks. I'm going to delete that. So I'm actually going to go back to shapes. There is another one that kind of will look like a hill, and that's this one right here, the delay. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to rotate it so it's straight up and down, just like that. And I'm going to drag that out. And that actually looks more like a hill than the other one does. And once again, I'm going to change that to black. And that gives me a better looking hill right there. I'm going to bring that up actually even. I'm going to really kind of cover the bottom part of this. So I'm really trying to make this look very much like we're on a hill. That's actually a very good start. The next part I want to do is I want to put like a really spooky looking tree right here. And I'm going to start by doing the bottom of the tree. So I'm going to actually go to shapes. I'm going to get this sort of snip same side corner rectangle because that looks like it's got some edge to it. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to bring that. I don't have to have it all shown, but I am going to rotate it a bit, just because remember, we're on a hill. And if I'm not liking how that looks, because I don't really like how that looks, so I'm going to delete that. I'm actually going to go with something maybe a little bit more traditional in terms of trying to get that. So maybe what I do is the trapezoid. The trapezoid actually probably would be better. Yeah, the trapezoid looks much better. So I'm going to turn that just a little bit. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller because I don't want a giant tree. I just want it big enough. Change that to black. That's a good beginning, actually. I could even make that a little bit thinner if I wanted to. That's even better. And now I'm actually going to use the scribble tool to help me do the gnarly looking tree trunk. So I'm going to go up to my line tool. I go down to scribble. And I'm going to click and hold at the same time that I'm moving my mouse just to help me with control. Now that's very thin. That's definitely not like a tree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the line weight. Let's see how 16 looks. That looks better. Maybe let's try 24. That looks even better. So there is my tree trunk. And I'm going to keep adding to it. So I'm going to even maybe add like a little piece here. Maybe I add some more curly branches, really kind of making it look gnarly and creepy looking. So maybe there's like a root coming out, something like that. Really just trying to make it look as creepy as possible. And once I finish with that, I really want to start making some maybe slightly smaller branches. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm back on my scribble tool. I'm going to start with maybe one like that, but I want that to go smaller. So I'm going to maybe go down to 16 or maybe even something thinner, maybe 12. And this is where I'm going to get a little creative. And right there, there's actually a really spooky looking tree right there. I like how that looks. So I'm going to make sure that that's my spooky looking tree. Right there. And I'm going to make sure that like all of these branches kind of really look like they belong on there. Just like that. The next part after I've finished with my tree is I want to make my spooky looking house. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with just a basic rectangle shape. I'm going to go like that. I'm going to drag it out until I get to the kind of shape that I want. I'm going to make it nice and tall. Once again, I'm going to change it to black, because remember, we're doing the silhouette. Silhouette means it's usually all in black or one solid color, and then there's a lot of colors behind it. So if you notice, the silhouette is against what looks like a sunset or something like that, and everything in front of it is going to be black. So here's my house for right now, and I want to add maybe some towers to it. Definitely try to make it look like it belongs like a haunted house. So once again, I'm going to go to shapes. I'm going to go to my rectangle shape. Now I'm going to do maybe 2 towers, maybe like a thick one and a thin one. Thinking like Addams Family sort of thing, because I just watched Addams Family last night. So here's one. And then I'm going to do a smaller one over here. So actually I'm going to duplicate this guy. Oop. Duplicate, not delete. I'm going to make this one a little thinner and a little shorter. Maybe that means I make this guy a little bit wider. Just like that. Now I need the roof. So I'm going to go back to my shapes. And you can do whatever kind of shape you want for the roof. You can do triangles. I'm going to do trapezoid. Or I'm even going to do the diagonal stripe. So I'm actually going to do the diagonal stripe to start with. I'm going to rotate this sucker just like that. Once again, I'm going to change it to black. And that looks really creepy right there. And I could even make this a little bit bigger. Although it probably would have been wise for me to do that before I actually moved it. Maybe I don't want to make it bigger. I kind of like that. So now maybe what I do is I'm going to go to the shapes again. Maybe this time I use the trapezoid just to make life a little easier for me. And I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller. I don't want them to overlap, so I want to make sure that that kind of works. And that actually works very well. Looks nice and spooky. So now what I want is a door right here. And I want the door to almost look like it's looking through the house to this sort of sunset. So I'm going to find a door shape, and that kind of happens with this delay right here, which I used earlier. So I'm actually going to use that, and I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to flip it around. Now I can't use transparent with this, because if I use transparent, it's just going to show me the black. So what I have to do is I have to go back to my gradient, my custom gradient right there. That kind of doesn't look quite as right. So maybe what I do is I go to something that's similar. Maybe I go to this, which works, but it's not quite as good. So maybe I'm going to make another custom gradient. So I'm going to go to custom, and I'm going to choose the same yellow. And this time we're on linear, which means the brightest is up top and the darkest is at the bottom. And I want to make sure that this is actually an orange, because we don't go all the way to the red with this particular gradient. It's only starting to go to the orange. And this actually works very well right here. Nice little gradient look right there. Now I'm going to make a path, actually. I'm going to use the scribble tool for that. Oh, my scribble tool disappeared. So let's try that again. So I'm going to make that path actually yellow, and I want to make that big. I don't want it that big because it's starting to go into the... And if you're not happy with your path, you can always erase it, change it, whatever. Now we need some windows in here. And if I go to shapes, there's a great window kind of shape down here in the flow chart. It's called ore. So I'm going to use that actually. I'm going to bring it right here. I'm going to actually zoom in so that way you can see me do this. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. So it can go right there. I'm going to change the to gradient. And I'm going to thicken up the line inside. So I'm going to make the border a little bit thicker. Just like that. That definitely gives it like a spooky sort of look to it. So I'm actually going to duplicate it and put it right there too. So I'm going to edit, duplicate. I'm going to put that one right there. And I'm actually going to make this one a little bit smaller. So now we've got windows in our spooky haunted house. Some other elements to make it really, really spooky. So maybe what I'm going to do is maybe add a couple little gravestones, maybe if I wanted to make this look like a graveyard or something. You don't have to, but you should try and make this look really, really spooky. So I'm going to go back to shapes, and I'm going to go to the delay again. I'm going to click it, and I'm going to rotate it. Now I'm going to make it thinner too. And this actually would be a good shape even for like a ghost shape if you wanted to make some ghosts. I like how that looks, so I'm actually going to duplicate that. Maybe I put one over here. Maybe I do another one, kind of crooked the other way. And now maybe what I need is something in the air. Maybe I need some bats. So I'm actually going to see if I can find like a shape that will work for a bat. So I'm going to go to shapes. And there is a shape that I've used before that works for the bat, and it's called half frame. So I'm going to click it. There it is when it comes in, but let's zoom in on it so you can see what happens. So before I do anything, I'm actually going to try and see if I can make this a little bit thinner. So what I do is I make sure my mouse is over one of the diamonds, and as you notice, as I drag it, it's going to make it thinner on one side. And then if I do that to the other side, it does the same thing. Now, before I rotate it, I'm actually going to make it even smaller. I have the shape. I'm going to rotate it just like that, and I don't want it straight up and down. I kind of want it on an angle, make it look like the bat is flying. I'm going to fill it with black. And I could leave it just like that if I wanted to. You could go in with the scribble tool, maybe add a couple of details. But for right now, I think I'm just going to leave it like that. So I'm going to duplicate this. Maybe add another little bat. And one more. Just like that. Now I'm going to zoom out. And here's my really, really cool haunted house. Now, if you wanted to, you could add some more. You could even add like a little ghost like we were just talking about, in which case, if you wanted to, you would go to shape. You would go down to the delay shape. I'm going to put a little ghost for the fun of it right over here. And you can make your ghost a different color. Like if you wanted to, you could make it one of the other gradients like that. But because we're doing silhouettes, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make it a black gradient, or I'm going to make it solid like that. And then as I do the face, so I'm going to zoom in, as I do the face, I'm going to pay attention to the gradient behind it. So there's the circle. I'm going to first do this. And now with the gradient, I'm actually going to go to that. So notice I filled it in kind of like what I did with the house. And then I'm going to duplicate that. So this kind of makes it look like you're seeing through. Now maybe let's have a little bit of fun with the mouth. So maybe right now I'm going to go to the polyline tool. And I'm going to give him a creepy looking mouth. So once again, I'm going to zoom in so that way I can really see this. I'm kind of just making some nice jagged edges here. And I'm going to fill it with the gradient again. Now I'm going to zoom out. And there is my creepy Halloween haunted house. Hope you had fun with this, boys and girls.